and what I tie to creativity and a lot of things. A lot of people say to me they don't know how I have all the energy I do. How do I do all the things
Yeah,
I
where are
do?
the batteries? Where are the batteries that you get
I
on?
don't have any
You don't have
batteries,
any
and you know
batteries?
what? This is probably bad to say. I don't even take vitamins. I don't. So it's like one of those things. I'm just. It is true that when you are inspired, that carries you. When you know how and when to say yes. I mean, it's also important to know when to say no too. So I'm not of the movement that says just say yes, but yes comes into play when you want to do something and you're not sure how to make room. If you say yes, room will appear. It will all happen. I'm a big believer of that. I've done when I was telling you that I started those 2 after school programs and that statewide internship. I was doing those things both at the same time.
Wow.
When I was in grad school, I was a public affairs manager and in grad school, and I think at one point doing a fellowship.
Mhm.
And then when I left that, I was off doing something else. I always made room because for me, part of what I would like to do in the world is give back.
Mhm.
And part of how I give back is through showing my love and my passion. And I guess, I mean, if I could leave anything, that's part of what I do. Um, but you know what? If you do it, room will appear. Just do it. Just as my friend would say about the video games, just try it. And if it doesn't work, you try something else. But you can't, at least you can say, you tried it. You did it.
Mhm.
And it's not necessarily tying it to some success. I think we get hinged on, well, what, like for example, nowadays with social media, people want to see, well, how popular are you?
Mhm.
How many hits did you get? If you were able to connect with at least one other person, or you got that message out for yourself because you just wanted to find voice and try,
Mhm.
then I say that was a success in and of itself.
Mhm. Yeah, we kind of we are in I guess yeah, quantifying how cool you are
Oh yeah, we've quantified even likes. We've become the likable society.
yeah.
And I do, don't get me wrong, I love when people, like, it's almost like validation, of course. You see someone like your post or you see someone share your post. I love getting dialogue going. Um, but also, what's equally important is the people who stop me on the street and say, you know, I did not get a chance to hit like, but I saw what you wrote and it connected with me in some way, shape, or form. And we're able to connect in that way, which is so valuable to me. So you're right.
Yeah.
We've become that type of, we've become such a click heavy society. Now that determines your worth
cool you are.
and you're a success. It's kind of, it's sad. And I hope we don't totally degrade into that.
Yeah, I think we are definitely moving into like we are living the trail of things. You know, everything we've always done. It's there. It's like it's there. So you
It's-
better start doing awesome things because it's gonna haunt
Well,
you
you've
later
got to
on.
be careful. I mean, this is something very interesting, especially with a lot of the stuff I do. I'm so public. I've been public for a really long time, whether it was here or whether it was in New Haven, or I mean, you can Google my name. So all sorts of stuff comes up of the work I've done. But it's also I've seen other people who have a different style than I do. We just have to be very mindful and intentional what we're putting out there, and not. I'm not coming from the perspective of don't air your dirty laundry, because who would I be to dictate to someone how they find their voice? But it also is about impact. I think sadly, and I just talked about this with social media being used to public shame, or some parents now using social media to, you know, march their kids out and teach them how to do the right thing, but it's actually being used as a shaming tool.
Yeah, just crazy that some parents like that's crazy. People would do
Well,
that.
and I think what it is that in some cases, to the credit of some of these parents in these cases that I'm thinking about, they're fighting for not only their lives but the lives of their children, and they're probably feeling like, I'm at a loss. I need to do something. But I also find too, it's become a culture now that we're behind a screen. We've become more connected and disconnected at the same time. We've never been more connected and disconnected at the same time, so that the screen dehumanizes in a way. I can say whatever I want, right?
Insult.
Be whoever I want, right? Without looking at how it's really harming and infecting and impacting that person. Yet at the same time, I can reach across the ocean and say hi to somebody in a quick way. Mm-hmm. So it's beautiful, but it's also tragic if we don't watch it with some of the things that have happened, with how we're, I would say, abusing the technology that we have at our fingertips.
Yeah. You know, with they say it all the time. With great power comes great responsibility, and we have like an amazing power now. It's beyond what a lot of people would have imagined even 20 years ago, 15 years ago. You know, like maybe not 15 years ago, but you know, like it's crazy how much. I mean, 15 years ago we didn't have smartphones everywhere. Like everybody around the world has them. Around the world.
They were in India. I saw people at spiritual services with these big phones. There was a part of me that was heartbroken about that. Even in the backwaters of southern India and Alpi, you better believe people had their smartphones.
Yeah.
There's something a bit heartbreaking about that. Even as someone, I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on Google+. I have several websites. I can actually say I have about 3 websites now.
Nice. It's a lot of websites.
You don't want to know how many email addresses I have. I mean, this is very interesting, and I've had to like cut some of that down. But I still stand by my statement. There is something heartbreaking, and there have been social commentary. There's a famous video circulating, showing from sunup to sundown, everyone behind their screens. They get together and they're hanging out, and everybody's on their phones. Everyone gets quiet because they're all together, but they're hanging on their phones. It's sad. It's very unfortunate, and yet at the same time, I see the need for it. We can connect to our family, to our loved ones, and to strangers who need to seek solace in the face of another stranger through Skype. I mean, so it's... I'm not against technology. I just wish, like you said, with great responsibility, with great power comes great responsibility. We need to be more mindful of the responsibility part.
True. And I also think about, you know, for most of human existence and, you know, life itself, really, you know, we lived the day as the sun went up, you know, and then the sun went down, and then we went to sleep. Maybe we would wake up maybe in the middle of the night, because that's something that we've known that humans did, you know, that would wake up in the middle of the night, have this weird, people call it the God hour, when you're really intuitive and creative, and people would do stuff, you know, people would do stuff in the middle of the night, and then go back to sleep and then do stuff, right? But our connection to the light was so important, right? And now, you know, we are in well, right now it's during the day, but all day we have light in our homes, in our house, like everywhere.
We've artificially, and the same thing that you're saying is what I used to always talk about. We've artificially extended ourselves, and it's no wonder why people do feel like they can't be creative, or feel like they're tapped out, because we have overextended ourselves. And I think there is a movement now trying to connect more with nature. I think even architects and engineers, when they design buildings, they are now, some of them are being very conscious about getting back into the natural environment and making sure we have access to it, because we are animals. And we do need some accessibility and some engagement with our environment, but it has gone to the extreme. Like, what do you think happens when you stick someone in a building or at a desk for 40 hours? And there is a sickness, I think, that happens to the spirit.
I agree. I think it's the consciousness of this world has like we actually become enlightened. We have, like, literally, we are light all the time, and we can.
Interesting. I like your play on those words.
And we think that we can do everything,
Yeah.
and yes, we can. Yes, we can. But it's I think it's a balance, and I do agree. We are moving into building homes that light up. At let's say at 7, they become more red tones and more more cozy, and you're like, oh, okay, I'm going to sleep. So that is
Yeah.
happening. But yeah, I do wonder what if it that's affecting people's creativity.
Yeah, and I do think that when the spirit is so heavy, and I don't mean necessarily in a religious sense or a spiritual babble sense, but I think that when we are just so mired down in our everyday, or with the health work I used to do, and we talked about, what contributed to or detracted from health.
Mm-hmm.
It's been proven by many studies when you're so busy trying to either keep yourself safe, worry about what's on the table for food for you and your family, whether or not you're going to have your job tomorrow, whether or not your children are going to die when they leave the home. Certainly a lot of families of color and a lot of different areas worry about that.
Yeah.
Keeping their little boys and their little girls safe. When you're worried, when you're constantly worried about your most basic needs that everyone should just have access to, there is no surplus. There's no